powerful when you speak. So I want to thank you so much all for coming to the Fireside Chat tonight, ladies and gentlemen, to join with us in this such an important topic that we will be talking about here. The unmasking depression and also finding support. When we talk about unmasking depression, this is really a very powerful act. It's really an act of reclaiming control over our own lives and shedding the weight of silence and the weight of suffering that goes unnoticed by the outside world. It is a raw and courageous confrontation with the darkness that hides behind the surface of depression. It challenges the stigma that keeps it hidden. Depression, we know, ladies and gentlemen, it wears many faces. The smile that hides behind the tears, the busy schedules, the words that mask the silence of the inner torment. When we choose to unmask depression, we expose not just the pain, but we expose the potential for healing. It is a step towards self-awareness and self-compassion, and it is also a declaration that we deserve to be seen, heard, and understood when there is any form of depression that is happening in our lives. And that is what we're here to talk about today with this audience. Miss Jones, Miss Tanya, Miss Crawford, and Mr. McLean. That's what we're here to talk about. They are the learned persons. They are in the area where they can share with us about unmasking depression. So I'm going to go from my left to my right, and I'm going to start with Miss Jones with the first question, and then we're going to come across, because this is a fireside chat where we have a discussion. Because tonight we want, when our audience leave this room, they take away something, whether for themselves or for someone else, that they can help to unmask the depression that is going through our society. So, Miss Jones, when we talk about depression, can you help us to understand what are some of the physical signs that can often be mistaken for other health issues? So someone is walking around with depression, but we often mistake them for the signs that they're showing because we are looking at it as other health issues. Talk to us about that.
Yes, thank you for that question. So sometimes you see persons who might struggle with migraines, headaches, just unexplained pain in their back, in their necks, in their shoulders, chronic fatigue, just things like that are physical symptoms that can be mistaken for other issues.
Wow, thank you so much for that. Miss Daniel, Miss Crawford, can I use first names or last name for the room tonight? First name is okay?
Yes, first names are good.
Wonderful. So who else want to jump in here? What other signs can we look for when we want to when we think of depression? We see persons walking around and we believe that they have other illnesses, but beyond the illness, there is some form of depression going on. What other signs can we look for?
All right, let me go first.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Feeling sad. Sometimes they feel sad, they lose interest in what they're doing. So they normally like to say walk, or they like exercise, or certain things they like to eat, they would stop, So, there's also some of the things that do. Even they are fatigued most of the time, and if their friends call on them for something, sometimes they're just not in the mood, changing mood. Yes.
Okay. And what about Mr. McLean? Go ahead. What other signs do you see around you?
Well, to add to that, there are many others. You'll find some person have a decrease in energy, having problems sleeping, going to bed, staying up, being awakened for the nights. You find others having thoughts of suicide, wanting to take their life. The feeling of worthlessness, as if I'm not good for anything. I can't find purpose. As I think my colleague had mentioned about headaches and cramps, and so there's some physical feeling irritable, sometimes outbursts, anger. Those are some signs or symptoms of depression.
Right. And if I can add to that, sometimes persons withdraw from friends or family. Friends and family are having a nice time and they just don't feel the vibe or the energy or the motivation to join in on the fun. And as other colleagues said that, there's this eating problem. The converse is also true as it relates to the eating problem because sometimes persons tend to eat a lot. So there's a increase in appetite on the other hand, whereas on in some instances persons have a decrease in appetite, and there's just that overall lack of motivation to engage in pleasant activities that they once enjoyed. So they don't want to have fun anymore, they don't want to watch the movie, they don't want to play any games. So yes, these are some of the signs that persons who are depressed may exhibit.
And if I may add, sometimes persons might lose weight, they might gain.
Yes.
When I'm so skinny, usually it comes with
Right,
depression as
right,
well.
right.
Or even when
Yes.
persons say, "Oh, you're so lazy." Those Jamaican terms.
And I want to add as well, sometimes they're tearful, they're always crying, they have this emptiness or hopelessness. So yeah, that's how they feel.
Okay.
But there's some persons who are very good at masking depression symptoms. There's some persons who they're hurting inside, but they laugh and they're bubbly just the same. So that could also be a sign if they're extra happy.
Yes.
Those are some excellent points that you all raised, but this is my follow-up question, because we have something that is called sadness and it is not depression. So is there like a time period that we can differentiate sadness from depression? Or are there any conditions that we see happening so that we can separate, normal sadness? Because something can happen to me today and I just feel sad and I'm withdrawn. I don't want to talk with anyone, or different ones of these symptoms. But it is not depression, it's just sadness. Is there anything that we can use to separate the two or differentiate from them, differentiate each other?
Well, I'm happy that you're making the distinction because um, we tend to use the word depression very casually. Oh, I'm
That's
depressed. But
true.
in reality, we are not really depressed
The mood
because we
swing
don't meet what we call the criteria
criteria.
to be right, Kevin, to be classified as being depressed. So as it relates to sadness, something happens and we are sad as a result. So we lose the phone, or we may be walking on the road and we lost a $5,000 bill and we are sad as a result. But as time goes by, we get over it. All right. With depression, no, it's persistent. It lasts longer than the usual sadness. And regardless of whatever is happening externally or even internally, we're depressed. So there's a distinction there between depression and sadness, in that for the mere sadness, it can be triggered by something that happened. But with depression, regardless of what is happening around us, we tend to be sad. And my fellow panelists will agree that there's a 2 week time period
Yes.
that according to DSM it says, well, persons need to be feeling sad and empty and all these other things that we described earlier more often than not for at least 2 week a 2 week period.
So in another way put, one is more short-lived, like a response, and the other is a prolonged experience. It's experienced for over 2 weeks, and the other is just a response.
Yes.
Excellent points. I'm sure my audience is really understanding what's happening here, because as Ms. Crawford says, sometimes we will confuse both sadness for depression, and so we can separate them by this 2 week factor. If it continues beyond 2 week, it probably is bordering now or ending up on the side of depression. So let me just go a little bit deeper and talk about family and friends. How can individuals effectively communicate their needs to their family and friends when they're struggling with depression? Because many times depression is seen as a hush hush. Don't say it, or don't let anybody know you're going through this, or only tell certain persons. How can individuals effectively communicate their needs to family and friend, and the family and friends really take it seriously that they're going through depression?
If I
Well,
may, Joe.
go ahead, go ahead.
Okay. I believe persons who are struggling with depression, who are seeking support, it's important to use I terms. You know, I feel like this, I feel like that. And it's also important for family and friends to be supportive and empathetic so that
Okay.
persons would want to come to them.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's very taboo to say, oh, especially in Jamaican culture, it's taboo to say, you know, I'm feeling depressed. We'll fire someone, you're just lazy. So it's important to create an atmosphere where persons feel comfortable and safe enough to come and say, you know, this is how I'm feeling. I feel like this. And then I believe it's on us as their family, as their friends to say, okay, how can I support you? If it's even just that question.
Right.
Thank you. I'm going
If
to
I may
ask Tanya
add,
to add. I'm coming around the room again. Tanya, go ahead and add your voice to this if you have anything to add to that. How can family and friends really help in supporting those who are depressed?
Well, one thing they can also do, you allow them to express themselves by writing how they feel, you know. So, for example, they're feeling down, they can, simple, like we use the term journaling. They can actually journal how you feeling today, and write down their thoughts, and so on. Yes.
Okay. All right. I'm coming across to Kevin and then to Miss Crawford because Shackwell mentioned a while ago about using the I term when you're, encourage them to use the I term. What are other effective methods of starting that conversation with them so that you can help to bring out what they're feeling so that you can also find help for them? What are some other ways to bring out what they're feeling? What conversation? Let's talk it in the Jamaican term. We know of somebody who we can identify that they're going through depression. What are some ways to just go to them and express that you understand what's happening to them?
A very simple and common way that we take for granted sometimes is simply asking people how they are on a casual basis. Like I practice that with my family, as young as my kids are, every day. How are you doing today? How are you feeling? I'll ask my wife, how are you doing? Sometimes as simple as that is, we normally in the mornings, we go to our phone, the first thing. We lose some simple touch, some simple communication, some gestures and simple check-in methods. Two, we need to educate each other, right? Not only in school do we need to be educated, but with this heightening of technology, it's very important that we share things about depression, about stress, that people are aware of symptoms. And so when they're feeling a particular way, they are way more easier to communicate and use the right words to describe how they're feeling because these things are circulated on a normal basis. So we need to make it more of a part of our life daily to check in with each other and share how we feel. And it's a good place to start.
Excellent point. I like that one because sometimes there are persons who appear to be stronger than others. So
That's right.
nobody go to them and say, how you doing?
That's
Because
right.
she's just a strong person. She's always up and about. And sometimes that's the person that you need to ask, Kevin, how are you doing?
How are you doing?
Exactly. Miss Crawford, what would you add to that?
Well, on the part of the person who is communicating the need for assistance or the need for support, first and foremost, I think that person would have to be at a place where he or she is willing to be vulnerable, because it, as mentioned earlier by my fellow panelists, sometimes persons feel, you know uncomfortable sharing what is happening with them, and so you have to be at that place where you're ready to receive the help, right? That's on the part of the person needing the help, and understand that it is okay to ask for help. On the other hand, now the friends and the family and, with a coworker or close associates who want to offer support, they would need to take an empathetic approach, so understand what is happening to the person. Sometimes we're a little bit insensitive, as Shakel said earlier. We want to say,
True.
what happened to you, get over it, man. But we have to understand that depression is a real challenge for persons. It is something that people go through, and if we do not create that environment that is warm and welcoming, or that context where persons feel welcomed and supported, then that person might not want to share what is happening to us. I want to add, though, if I might, that sometimes we ask persons how they're feeling, but we're so busy and tired. We really
Not
don't
prepared to
stop
listen.
to
Not prepared to
listen.
listen. I
We
was
really
about
don't
to
stop
add
to
that.
listen. So we have to be willing to listen to
Listen.
those persons, because someone who is depressed might just want to talk, 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 talk. So if it is that you're not mentally
Prepared
and
to
otherwise
listen.
prepared to listen to that person, I don't think that that time is an appropriate time to ask the person. So you want to create the atmosphere, the environment, the context for that person to share and get the help needed.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, if you joined the room since we just started, we are talking tonight on the Fireside Chat about unmasking depression, signs and the symptoms. And also, we're going to talk a little later about how to find support. We're talking today with Mr. Kevin McLean. He's a guidance counselor. Miss Shaquelle Jones, she's a counselor in training. Miss Tanya Brown, an educator. And Miss Nardia Crawford, a psychotherapist. We want to pause for a moment to recognize NRP Media and Radio out of Christiana in Manchester, who is carrying the program live and will be carrying the program live on a Tuesday at this time, 8 p.m. Eastern. We are coming to you from Fort Lauderdale in Florida. Once again, I'm Dr. Janice Brooks, the host for the program. We have been here for the last 4+ years, almost 5 years, on this platform at this time, carrying this program. I want to recognize our sponsors, Jengar Bookkeeping Solutions and Jengar Helping Hands from out of Brooklyn in New York. Jennifer and Dave Henderson. I want to recognize SaaS Solutions from out of Fort Lauderdale in Florida. Caribbean Sustainability Management Council out of Montego Bay, Jamaica. And I also want to recognize the presence of MEI Coaching and Consulting and Dr. Sigfred Howell, LLC. We are going back into the program and we're going to be looking a little bit deeper at the impact of depression when we get into places like the workplace. So my next question to my panel, how can leaders, managers, friends, whoever in the workplace, how can they also uncover depression in the workplace? And aligned to that, I want you to also talk about what resources, whether it's books, website, hotlines, you think are available for seeking support both at home and in the workplace. Ms. Shaquelle, I'm starting back with you and I'm coming across.
Not a problem. In the workplace, well, for one, as a manager, as the team lead, I believe it's important to approve the sick days, approve the time off for persons to get that mental rest that they need to work on their mental health is very important. And I do want to say, even if you're not physically sick, taking a sick day, it's still okay. I know persons are against it, but I truly advise it. You were asking now about how, so if it's a toxic workplace, it's going to make depression even worse. It's not going to aid in recovery at all versus a healthy environment, healthy co-workers, understanding, empathetic co-workers. In terms of resources, I believe that in some places, in some workplaces, they have resources through HR. So some training there for HR, or even just giving them the resources that they need, just reading up, having workshops, talking about it, especially if you notice that there's someone in the office who might be struggling with some symptoms, like they're not coming to work all the time, they're always calling in sick. They seem like they're not achieving the same daily tasks that they used to, things like that. Those are signs that they can pick up on, they're not as cheerful as they used to be. They don't want to participate in the activities. So just being supportive, being non-judgmental, as someone in the comments said, it's extremely important in aiding in recovery of someone who is struggling through depression.
Excellent points, excellent points. Tanya, what would you add to that?
Well, in terms of the negative aspect or signs, withdrawal. Some of them become withdrawal. They don't want to talk to anybody. They tend to sometimes stay by themselves. They're fatigued, they're irritable, the work level actually decline. So they normally was out say a very good worker. They notice that they're not so active anymore, And in terms of health, you really have to be non-judgmental, because sometimes what we do, we cause more harm than good. We judge people, but you have to really respect them, and another thing they could do is train the managers, to detect some of these signs, because sometimes they're not trained, and they also can provide, say, access to mental health resources, right? So you can include therapy, yeah, and we do have counselors, in schools, but sometimes teachers, for example, teachers don't want to go to counselors, and I just think, well, maybe it's only students, or even other workplace. You can, allow your workers to engage in psychotherapy, and and also have a balanced life, because what happens is sometimes persons are burnt out. They're just constantly working, and so if they can, include play, include play in it. So for example, persons go out, or workplace can take the staff out for a luncheon, and even a beach trip or so on. And I think in terms of help is available. We have Choose Life International. You have a lot of persons now. They have different counseling centers that are available that they can actually call. You have helpline. You have even the very churches. So help is available. So persons can actually just reach out. So when they reach out, persons are willing to help them. Yes.
Excellent, excellent. We're hearing the points here tonight. I'm coming over to the guidance counselor who is in the school, and he is seeing all that is happening. So I want him to add his voice, and I'm coming over now to the psychotherapist who also need to add voice to this discussion. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to ask you, if you have points, questions, go ahead and drop them in the chat, because in a few moments, we are going to be opening the floor so that we can pose more questions. Read your comments and your questions in the chat and pose them to the panel so that they can answer those questions. Mr. McLean, you are in this school as a guidance counselor. Ms. Tanya mentioned a while ago that the teachers can come to the guidance counselors too. What are you finding happening when you're in this school, and how do you break this down?
Interestingly, you asked that question. Recently, I took some days from work, and I wrote on my sick leave, rather, mental fatigue. And my supervisor called me casually talking about the stigma, that you were not sick, you were not physically sick. And I'm saying, sir, I had a hectic month of November. I had like 4 major events, and mentally I felt drained. And so one is important that our managers be educated that it's not only when someone is physically sick with a flu or you name it, that they need a break. 2, it is very important to recognize, I think someone wrote in the chat earlier about giving a day for mental break, something that it builds the awareness and even confidence of staff members that they not only need to take a sick leave when they're feeling sick, but also a mental break is also important. So you don't have that prolonged, as Miss Crawford spoke about earlier, about a prolonged feeling of sadness, which then can lead to depression. It's very important that you notice the signs simply and quickly in order not to be in a depressive state. So one, and thirdly, it's important that they incorporate these in professional developments. So that's just only about money and making more money, because that's what people want to hear. Oh, I can make more money and be rich. But people need to also be aware that mental health is very important, and they have to take care of their brain and their mind.
As a matter of fact, I'm glad you said that. Mental health is very important, because there's a scripture in the Bible. It's also biblical. It says, without your mind, you can do nothing. So
Right.
just think about it. If you don't have your mind, you can't function. So mental health is very critical. We know of a case or 2 cases, major companies in the United States recently. One of the companies where the team member asked her supervisor for time off, and the supervisor declined the time off. The lady died. Then we learned that another case, we don't know if this had anything to do with depression, but there are skeptics around it, that they found the person dead at their desk.
Wow.
And they didn't find the person until 3 days later, major companies in the United States. So if we are in the workplace, in the school, wherever we are, we have
That's
to
true.
keep an eye out for
That's
what
true.
is happening. Ms. Crawford, add your voice to what your colleagues have already said.
Thank you. So to add to what they have already said, or what they have said, let's face the reality. In some workplace, there is a high level of toxicity. There's discrimination, there's bullying, there's lack of support, lack of empathy, and this can drive persons into depression. All right. So what can happen in the work environment is that there can be policies that address discrimination, policies that address bullying. We can implement policies that will enhance support of staff members. Some staff members or some employees, on the other hand, might be depressed because of the workload that they have to carry on a daily basis. There's some persons who, because they want the job, they have to be working odd hours, they have to be carrying various loads because this is their job, and they just do it because it pays the bill. But if the employer were to address that situation, then what could be done is that there's a balance in the workload, right? Or maybe employ more persons. And what we find happening nowadays, well, I guess since COVID, is that you find when you go even in the banks, you find that there are less employees there, but there are more customers to be served. And so, these people are tired. Some of them, they cannot mentally cope because of the added stress, because of the added workload, and that can drive them or push them into depression. I want to add also that in recent times, I've noted where more employers are making provisions for their workers to get mental health assistance. And so they have what is known as the EAP program. The drawback with some of these programs is that you're limited to maybe 3 sessions. And, when you're working with depression, that cannot be resolved in as little as 3 sessions. But I mean, it's good for starts. So those are some of the ways that employers can or have been addressing depression in the workplace.
I also wanted to add that it's important to remember that if you don't have 100%, you can't give 100%.
Very
So it
good.
helps
Very
neither
good.
the
Thank
employer
you.
nor the employee.
Yes, that's true, Shakel.
Absolutely. And
And I
go
want to
ahead,
add
Mr.
as well,
Antonio.
self-care is very important. So you have
Yes.
to first take care of you before you
Mhm.
can take care of somebody else.
Yes, yes.
Absolutely. And that was going to be my next question. It as a matter of when we come down to the crux of everything. As a matter of fact, I read an article recently, and this one was out of Jamaica. I'm not sure who proposed it, that they were proposing mental health days, and employers to start giving mental health days. And there's some kind of, controversy argument over it, whether it should be called mental health days, because some persons might think when you say mental health days that this person is getting crazy and need days off. Should they find a softer term to call it, rather than mental health days? Just like you get 2 weeks sick leave, they believe that you should have at least a week mental health days. But whatever comes out of that, because it's something out of Jamaica, I see you shaking your head, Mr. McLean, and it sounds like you're not agreeing with it. So talk to me about why you're shaking your head across the side there.
No, you're misinterpreting. I'm agreeing with you. So
Okay.
It's the wrong direction. My bad.
Okay, excellent point. So over to you, Miss Jones. My next question is about the self-care that Ms. Tanya talked about earlier. How can lifestyle changes such as diet, exercise, self-care impact or help the recovery process from depression?
Well, depression usually comes with chemical imbalances within your body, and exercising really helps to I'm sorry, that word is slipping from me, to
Really?
normalize it once again. Exercise can help to boost your mood. It can help you to feel energized again, to get back to a place of, feeling comfortable in your skin, feeling energized. Working out and also eating healthier can help you with even your sleeping patterns going off. Sometimes when you go to bed late, you're eating junk food, but changing your diet, changing the times that you're eating can help you to get better sleep, which can also help to improve your mood. So self-care is very, very important because it prepares your body, and it also helps your mind. And to add to that self-care, there's also journaling. There is also just spending time with people that you love, just enjoying even like a cartoon, as I know some persons as adults still watch cartoons, something that's not too serious, not too heavy on the mind, to just help to de-stress, to just relax a little bit. Journaling for me personally helps. Getting that all out, even if I don't know what it is, just getting it out of my body. Those are some things that I believe are important when it comes to recovering from depression, and also using the resources around you in terms of counseling. Somebody mentioned going to a pastor, talking to a pastor. A lot of our pastors here in Jamaica now actually have training in counseling as well, to be more equipped to help persons in the community, in the churches, to deal with these issues. Yes.
I'm glad you mentioned that. And talking about the pastors, I believe that the pastors should be trained in mental health counseling and in counseling in general. Become certified if needs be, because there's so many issues that come up that the church needs to be front and center with assisting to overcome these kind of challenges. I'm going to take the last circle around the room, and then we are going to be opening the floor because I see the chat getting full, and we are almost up to 9 o'clock, and we need to take those questions, those comments. We need to have the audience asking questions. This is how we do it in this room. When we open the floor for the audience to ask questions, you can either place your question in the chat or you can raise your virtual hand, and one of the person from the panel will answer the question. We also have in this room other trained persons. I'm seeing Dr. Amiel over there, Philibert Amiel. He's a counseling psychologist, well trained, well learned. He may be able to answer some of the questions for us tonight, because we are going to leave this room full and overflowing with knowledge as to how to unmask depression, and also how to point persons in the direction of getting support and help when we see that they're going through or on the brink of becoming or in the middle of depression. So I want to come again around the room and talk about this issue of how can diet, exercise, self-care help with making sure that depression, somebody's already asking for a part 2. All righty, help with depression. Miss Tanya, what would you add?
Well, there's several things I could add. She mentioned exercise. Yoga is also good to, when you meditate, especially breathing exercise, persons can practice that as well. Hobbies, persons, what is it that you enjoy doing? So persons enjoy, say, swimming, whatever, reading, whatever, that can help in self-care. And I think Mrs. Jones also mentioned about your diet. Your diet is very, very important, And another thing we have to do is reduce harmful habits, things that are harmful, that will cause you to feel down and sad. So you have to avoid even alcohol and things that are drugs. Those things also will cause you to, that is to not have proper self-care. Yes. Another thing too, they can look at, there are several other things they can look at, but most importantly, is you can even go out with friends, have a day when you just go out and relax, try to be self-aware, know about yourself, know about your body, be resilient, so you're able to bounce back from challenges. So something happened, yes, it happened, but you just deal with it and refocus your thoughts so that you can be better able to manage your stress level. Yes.
Thank you so much. I'm going over to Mr. McLean, but as you say, deal with it. I, my mind went directly to temperament, because it's something I studied widely. Because persons have different temperament. There are some persons who they just never go into depression because of the kind of temperament. They are sanguine. They're all over the place. Others, it's hard for them to get out of it. They're like phlegmatic. They just sit under the weight of everything. Over to you, Mr. McLean. What are some of the other health tips
Well,
that you
nothing much more to add.
persons?
But personally, what I do sometimes whenever I find myself being, overworked, is to break my routine. So while we established earlier about the fact that depression normally affects your routine, sometimes by changing your routine also helps you with depression. So, like for me, sometimes we think we need more sleep, but we need rest, and that's why the Bible instituted the Sabbath. And because sometimes you do sleep, but you still feel the same way when you get up. It's sometimes a simple break in the routine. Maybe a long time family member driving to the country. So my wife and I, since we have a very busy schedule and very productive life, whenever she knows, whenever I need to be rebooted, I just need to change my routine, take a break, and do something different that I would not normally do on a daily basis. And trust me, it changes everything. Like, for example, I remember driving to Canada. I was so tired, driving like about 15 hours from Georgia. But at the same time, because it was different and different scenery, I found it entertaining, while even though it was a tiring experience. So you find that changing your routine, doing something different, definitely can help you self-medicate and recover nicely.
Excellent point. I like the fact about breaking the schedule, or the schedule, whatever we pronounce it as, because anytime we have a fixed schedule about
That's it.
everything in our life, there's a problem.
It
There's
contributes. It
there's
contributes
going
to
to be a
depression.
problem. Everything cannot just be to the mark.
Need
We
the
have to
Sabbath.
be able
We need
to.
the Sabbath.
Exactly. Back over to you, Miss Crawford. What would you like to
Okay,
add?
I believe self-care is important as one seek to cope with depression, because really, if you're tired and you are stressed and you lack energy, it may push you further into depression, and you really can't cope. You can't take part in the activities that are being used to help you to cope. And so I think it's best that you take some care, right? Get your rest, eat properly, engage in mindfulness as indicated earlier by my colleagues, so that you can successfully participate in the recovery process from depression.
Excellent. Thank you so much, panel. I'm going to be changing my view at this time so that we can go to the audience. And while I'm changing my view, I also want to go back again and recognize the presence of NRP Radio, who will be carrying and is carrying the program live at this time. I also want to recognize Jengar Bookkeeping and Jengar Helping Hands from out of Brooklyn in New York, SaaS Solutions from out of Fort Lauderdale. I want to recognize Caribbean Sustainability Management Council from out of St. James, Montego Bay. And also, I want to also recognize MEI Coaching and Consulting and Dr. Sigfred Howell LLC from out of Delaware in the United States. I am going to be changing my view at this time so we can take some questions from the chat. I want to thank everyone who has joined us tonight, who came into the room early, those who are in. We are delighted to have you. We thank you so much for coming to sit with us for such an interesting conversation about depression. Sometimes depression is at our own door and we can't recognize it. Sometimes it's us. At other times, it's other persons that we know, that we communicate with daily, that we live with. We must be able to recognize and understand when someone is depressed rather than when they are sad, as our panel talked about earlier. So I'm going to ask, if you're in the audience at this time and you have a question or even a comment, go ahead and raise your virtual hand and we will take you as you have done that. I'm going to also go in the chat at this time and I'm going to see what we have there, if we have some questions or comments, and we are going to take those as well. But if you're there and you have a question, a comment, something that you need to add to the discussion, feel free at this time to go ahead and do just that. So looking in my chat here, and it said there is also seasonal depression, holiday depression, weather depression. There are all different kinds of depression. And as our panel talked earlier, that there is a 2 weeks frame that you need to at least chip out of it before it becomes depression and chronic. Only Caribbean people hide from everything. I'm not sure about that. Absolute words. Let's see. How do one deal with depression after letting family and friends know, yet there was no help? That's an excellent question. How does one deal with depression after letting family and friends know, yet there was no help? I'm going to hand this over to anyone in my panel. I also want to add that there was a time in life, and I like that question. There was a time in life when you express something to persons, and that expression, the problem was half solved. Many a times today, when you express something, it becomes a talk or a gossip. And so we have to know, as much as it's our family and friend, we also want to know that when we express this, it's someone who has the ability, at least, to either get us some help or to help us. My panel and Dr. Philibert, please, Dr. Amiel, please feel free to add your voice if you would like to. Any of the panel want to take that question? How do one deal with depression after letting family and friends know, yet there was no help?
I want to try to go first. Yes. First, as I think I mentioned this earlier about being resilient, able to bounce back after setback, after a bad incident, and also biblical therapy. Reading the Word of God. Meditating upon His Word, praying. Talking to God does help. So, person, when nobody helps, God is always there. He's always present. So you can always depend on Him for help. Yes.
Thank you
All
for
right, so I
adding
may
that.
add to that. The good thing about this day and age is that we have online resources, we have self-help books, we have counseling centers. Here in Jamaica, we have numerous agencies. Where I work at the Caribbean Graduate School of Theology, we have a counseling center. We train counselors, right? So there are ways and means to get help outside of the family and the friends. The only drawback may be because what depression does, it causes persons to lack motivation some of the times, depending on the severity. And so you may want that support from friends and family to maybe follow you to accompany you to a session or to make the call on your behalf. But I would encourage anyone who feel that they are depressed and they need the help to take up the phone, make that call, send that email, send that WhatsApp message, send that text message, because help is there for you outside of the regular, home setting or work setting.
And for the person or persons who openly express themselves to their family or their friends and did not get the support that they were anticipating, that can be very difficult because you're in a vulnerable space, and it probably took a lot for you to open up and be honest and transparent about what you're experiencing. So to get a response that is not what you anticipated can add more weight to the weight you're probably already feeling. What I would say in that case is it can be caused by many different things on their part. I would believe that at times it is difficult for other persons to understand and know how to respond according to the support that you need. So sometimes it's not because they don't believe you or anything like that, or, they think you're making up excuses or whatever. Sometimes they just don't have the resources to assist. And I believe that for us, the person who has been offended the person who is depressed and doesn't feel like they're being supported, I believe it is important to understand that it's going to be okay regardless, even if they don't understand, don't hold on to it. Try not to hold on to it. It's okay to forgive them as well as you seek your own healing, as you go through your healing process. So they might not understand, but that's okay. Someone else might. So don't stop sharing. If you want to open up again and you feel safe again to open up, you can pray about it if you're a Christian, or think about it. Be diligent about who you speak to. And even if they don't give you the response that you are hoping for, that's okay.
Excellent. Before I go to the next question, did you want to add anything, Mr. McLean?
Well, basically just to encourage that person or persons that the fact that you have made it known is the first step. And talking is therapeutic. So be encouraged that at least you broke the silence in letting your feelings and how you felt known. And that's a good start. Good place to begin. So be encouraged.
I love that point. I think I see someone drop that in the chat, that just the fact of opening up is a ton of help, because it actually starts the process. It's a journey to healing. I have a question here from the chat. It says, at what point, and I'm going to take Dr. Amiel, maybe Dr. Amiel can start answering this question, and then he can tell us his question as well. At what point do you need to get medical help for someone who seems to be depressed? Dr. Amiel, go ahead and ask your question, make your comment, or if you want to answer that question, that's fine.
Good night, everyone. Good night to my students. I am so proud of you. You have done yourself proud tonight.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
So I think once you communicate to your family, speaking to the first question, once you communicate to your family and they don't have the capacity to deal with it, I think it is time for professional help. So I think you need to get professional help so that someone can identify the source as a root cause or causes of the depression, and then from there they can develop a treatment plan, identify the best route as how to help you to recover. Sleep, exercise, and diet is critical in the recovery of depression. When you look at what sleep does, a lot of times when persons get depressed, there's an overload of inflammation and inflammatory chemical because there's a high load of cortisol and all of that. So when you engage sleep, you engage your lymphatic system, which is a network of tube that flushes in liquid or fluid to flush out. So when that doesn't happen, then there's no cleaning of the brain, and it takes away the clarity of thought, the ability to engage the next day and to remain calm and all of that. And so you become more depressed and more depressed and more depressed. So you need professional help, and they will guide you through the sleeping process. Resilience, as much as we talk about it, resilience comes from sleep. If you don't have a healthy sleep hygiene, then you can't be resilient, because resilience is built through sleep when that learning and memory is consolidated through sleep, and we know what exercise does to the brain in terms of neuroplasticity. It offers a flexibility, so the brain can adapt to new learning, new things, and so it enhances and strengthens your ability to recover from what it is that you are struggling with. If I'm minded, if you can ask the question again, the second question, just let me see if I can.
Okay, it was about, I know the panel talked about the 2 weeks mark, but this one is asking, at what point do you need to get medical help for someone who seems to be depressed?
All right, so if it is that it has persisted over the 2 weeks mark, so it is not just 2 weeks, it is most of the day for every day over a 2 weeks period. So once you see that depressive sadness, and I often say to people, when you feel the tears behind the eyes, it is time to wake up, because that's depressive sadness. So not all tears are filtering tears. Some tears are depressive tears. So once you get to that point, it's time for you. It's time for you to get help. You need to go to the doctor because there are times when you need to get some sleep, and you need the doctor to prescribe something to help with the sleeping process, because if you are not sleeping, depression is going to take you to places that you don't want to be. Remember also that you have depression with psychotic symptoms,
Right.
where you have nihilism and you have the whole thing about delusion and hallucination. So you have depression with psychotic symptoms. And the whole work of psychosis, the positive and the negative component of it. So these are areas that, medication will help, and medication therapy will assist in the recovery process.
Thank you so much. I have been scanning my eye across the room. I wanted to wait to see if attorney Anne-Marie Bishop was coming into the room, but I have not seen her because I needed her to speak tonight. And Attorney Bishop, I want to give her a big shout out to her. She has been extremely instrumental in getting this panel together. I was waiting to see her. I'm not seeing her across the room because I wanted to introduce her and have her speak. I hope that she will come in before we close the program so that she can get to speak. But I want to send out 100% thanks to Attorney Anne-Marie Bishop for getting this panel together. I see the comments in the chat, the expressions of how a good session it was. And the panel have done extremely well in bringing across the topic. I hear Dr. Amiel said, my students. Who thought these are students? Who thought any of these are students?
We are students.
I learned so now because you all spoke so very well, as if you're fully trained and out there in the field. So I want to thank you so much again. And I hope attorney comes into the room before we leave so that I can have her speak as well. I want to go across because I don't see any more questions in the chat. Someone says we need to learn how to take a vacation without feeling guilty and feeling anxious. And that is such an excellent point. That vacation. I can think about that. Sometimes we end up on vacation and it's a working vacation. It's not vacation. So yeah, we need to, Mr. Macklin talked about the rest, and we need to be able to take that rest. If we're on rest, we need to take that rest. I want to express again thanks. Our program usually ends at 9. I want to express thanks again to my panel, and I'm going to go across the room and ask each of them, since I'm not seeing any more questions, to give their final word. What do you want to leave with the audience tonight on this topic on masking depression and finding support? What do you want your audience to take away from this room tonight? Miss Tanya, you're right next to me. I'm going to start with you first.
First, I would say a lot of persons think that going to see a counselor is, there's a stigma attached to it. But I would say to them, it's for your own mental health. So if you're going through a series of problems you cannot deal with on your own, family members cannot help you, nothing is wrong. To book an appointment but on your own, just talk about it. When you talk, it helps you. Talk therapy really helps, So as we learn about cognitive behavioral therapy and so on. So when we talk about it, we'll be able to reframe our thought system. So some things that, instead of dwelling on it, you learn to change your thought system, reframe from it, and actually, in order for you to cope. So if you're out there and you're feeling down, you're feeling depressed, go ahead and, there are a lot of counseling centers out there, and, they're willing to help you. Yes.
All righty. Thank you so much. That's an excellent point. Ms. Crawford, you can go ahead and give the room your final words. What do you want them to leave with tonight from this session?
Thank you. Just want to affirm what my colleague said just now. Depression is real. It is a mental health condition, and help is out there. It is okay to get help. And what I find sometimes is that when persons are getting the help that they need, the moment they start feeling better, then they want to stop treatment. And we want to encourage you, if you find yourself in a situation where you are getting professional help and you start feeling better, my suggestion is follow through with treatment. All right, be compliant, be consistent, follow through. Because if you stop the treatment before going through, you may find yourself going back into a state of depression, what we call relapse. You may relapse and you may relapse, and we wouldn't want that to happen. All right, so once you've gotten help and you're being consistent, as Dr. Emil talk about the treatment plan, once a treatment plan has been developed for you and the counselor is taking you through that, my suggestion is that you follow through. If you're on medication for whatever reason for the depression, follow through on your medication. Of course, you would want to discuss, with your doctor the best medication for you. If you're encountering side effects, then you want to discuss that as well. Follow through with your medication, be consistent, and maintain a positive outlook on life, because sometimes we fall into depression because we harbor negative thinking. We're always thinking the negative thing. So want to also engage in negative thinking, have a positive outlook on life, go have fun, take part in pleasurable activities. Your family members are going out, hang out with them, take some time to rest, take time to take care of yourself, take time to have fun, and you will get through this. Okay.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Over to you, Miss Jones, and then we're going to take Mr. McLean with your final words, wrap up.
Thank you. What I wanted to add was, it might be hard, but even if you have to force yourself to get better, force yourself, push yourself. It's going to be worth it. Sometimes when persons are depressed, they might feel like they're the only ones who's experiencing it. Trust me, you're never alone. There are other persons who have experienced it, other persons who are experiencing it, and unfortunately, other persons who will experience it. But there is help available, but you have to want to help yourself. You have to want the help. You have to be able to say, you know what? I don't want to keep waking up not wanting to wake up. Get the help that you need, even if you have to force yourself. That's what I wanted to add. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. McLean, over to you.
Just to somewhat reiterate that we all have a responsibility and we all can reach one by simply asking somebody, how are you? And not only ask, but prepare to listen. And in that way, we all can add to and alleviate depression in general in our society. So let's just, reach one. Everyone can reach one.
Thank you so much. Everyone can reach one. Some powerful points across the panel. Closing points. Miss Janet, I see you have your hand up in the corner there. Go ahead and speak.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is a fantastic platform tonight. And I think for the season, the climate that we're in right now, the election that just passed, and with so many things looming on the horizon for January, I think this is a very pointed session tonight. And I really think that we should do it again, because there's so much more answers that we want to these questions that we have. And right now, a lot of people at my work is depressed. A lot of people, and they just sent out an email for the EPA or the EAP about going to get counseling. And when they start, they might give you 2 or 3 sessions, but they refer you to someone further. And so, and also Christmas season, a lot of people get depressed, and a lot of so much things going on right now. And I think who can pray need to pray, and who can call up their neighbors, friends, family members, are you okay? Just to check up on us. It's just a very trying time right now. And everything is uncertain. Everybody is unsure. And most people are hiding in their house right about now. So we just need to just pray. ICE is looking for a lot of us. We just need to pray.
Thank you so much, Miss Janet. I don't know where you get that from, but the comments continue to come in the chat. Great job, panelists. Super proud of you, my colleagues. Well done, panelists. So we continue to get the comments in the chat. I want to say thank you once again to the panelists, to those who asked the questions, to those who made their comments, to everyone who joined in the program with us tonight. We want to thank you so much for coming. We have another 2 weeks left before we close for the 2024 and going to 2025. We have been on this platform for the last almost 5 years. We're just a few months away from 5 years. And God has been extremely good to us for us to have carried on for all of this time. The scripture says it's not by might nor by power, but it is by his spirit that has kept us here. And we are truly glad. We want to thank you again. And we hope that in the new year, we can do a part 2 with this panel again, because I think, as Janet says, we have much more to discuss on this topic. Again, before we close, I want to recognize NRP Radio in Christiana, Manchester, and the leaders for this radio station. I want to acknowledge the sponsors, Jen Gar Bookkeeping out of New York, Brooklyn, Jen Gar Helping Hands, SAS Solutions, Caribbean Sustainability. I also want to recognize, I saw Dr. Marcia in here. If you don't have a place to go, please register for Dr. Marcia Thomas Divine Alignment Masterclass that is coming up on December 10th. If you need to get the ways and means to register for this masterclass, please let me know and I will send the QR code to you, or the way to register for this masterclass. It's Unleash Your Divine Blueprint to Live Your Most Authentic Life. It's a masterclass happening on December 10th, and the time is 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Dr. Amiel Dings, Clover, Lorraine, out of Canada, Bradley Kane, and New York, Mrs. Hyacinth, Ratri Joan, Patricia Jengar, wherever you're joining us from, Tamika, in the audience, Brianna, thank you so much again for joining us. God bless you. Before we leave, I'm going to ask you, Dr. Amiel, can you please just unmute your microphone and just pray us a small prayer for those persons who are going through depression and anxiety, especially at this time?
Father, in the name of your Son, Jesus, we give you thanks, we give you praise. Thank you, Lord, for leading for us tonight as we discuss depression. And God, I pray, placing everyone who might be depressed, I pray for your strength, your guidance. I pray, God, that you will speak to them, motivate them by your Holy Spirit. That, Lord, as they go through from day to day, feeling sad, feeling depressed, feeling overwhelmed, then your Holy Spirit will lift them up, will motivate them, will encourage them. And my God, the slump of depression will release them. Bless and do us good, we pray. We tell you thanks in Jesus' name.
Amen. Amen. Praise God. Thank you so much. Let me see. I see a comment come here in the chat. Let's see. Okay, sure. You can go ahead and mention your programs. Absolutely. Talk to us about your programs over there at CGST. Who is the person who wanted to talk about the programs?
That would be Miss Crawford.
Okay,
Crawford,
sure,
you're
absolutely.
muted.
Please tell us. Yes. You're muted, Miss Sam.
Thank you. So I'll grab this opportunity to invite persons to visit our website, www.cgst.edu.jm, to review or to read up about our programs, we offer 2 programs, and we have our HOD for the MATS, that's Master of Arts in Theological Studies. Dr. Newton is very much online. Thanks for joining, Dr. Newton. We have a Master of Arts in Theological Studies, Master of Arts in Counseling Psychology, and if for persons who want additional information, www.cjst.edu.jm. You can visit our website. There are contact numbers there. You can reach out to our marketing person to get further information. You can apply online. The good thing about our programs is that they're fully online. So you can apply online, you can study online, and we have payment plans available. We also have some scholarships available, but you can get more information once you reach out to one of us directly. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And they can be from anywhere in the world, is that correct?
Anywhere in the world. We also offer counseling services as well, online, for persons who are interested, with your permission.
Absolutely. Thank you. And that is Caribbean Graduate School of Theology, correct?
Yes, CJST, Caribbean Graduate School of Theology.
And it is out of Jamaica. Where is it located? In what parish?
We are on 18 West Avenue. That's off Constant Spring Road, Kingston 8, Jamaica.
Excellent. Excellent. Caribbean Graduate School of Theology. Thank you for that, Paul, right there. I didn't see attorney come into the room, Anne-Marie Bishop, but I want to again give her a big shout out for arranging this session tonight. And thank you again, everyone, for coming. God bless you. And we will see you next week, this same place, 8 p.m. Eastern. Invite someone to come in and sit with us at the Fireside Chat. The program is officially ended. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.